Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Biz Essentials podcast. I'm your host, Veronika, and today we're going to be speaking with Don Sizer. Now, you may have noticed that the first 3 episodes of 2022 were all about planning and mindset and getting your year started on the right foot. But guess what? I knew 2 different people who got hacked over Christmas. So I thought right now would be a great time to bring in this episode. We're going to be talking about the biggest mistakes that small business owners make when it comes to cybersecurity that not only put your data at risk, but also may make you legally liable.
It's kind of like if you don't lock your car door, the people aren't going after your particular car. They're just going down a line of cars and seeing which doors open.
But more importantly, we're also going to be talking about the steps you can take and the tools that you can use to keep you and your data safe. I'm excited to bring you today's episode, so stick around and I'll be back with Don right after this.
Tony Robbins once said, "No matter how many mistakes you make or how slow you progress, you are still way ahead of everyone who isn't trying." This is the Biz Essentials. You want to grow, get ahead, keep the spark. Here you'll get valuable insights and empowerment to grow personally and professionally. Isn't it about time you turn your dreams into successful passion projects? Learn how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself. The B Essentials. This is the Biz Essentials. And this is your host, Veronika of Veronika Ventures.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Don. Don, I was just telling our audience how excited I am that you're here because, let's face it, this day and age, IT is everything. I know that you started in IT back in the early 90s. And then you started your own company in 2006. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I've been in the IT field, started my own company after building 2 other ones, and decided that I had enough. I wanted to do it for myself and did it that way. So now we are an MSP, which is a managed service provider. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it's anybody that is providing IT for you if you either don't have an IT department or if you need your IT department augmented by somebody that has a deeper bench. So that's what we do.
You're a third-party company, obviously. So a small business owner who doesn't have an IT department, they would come to you?
They would come to us, yes.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that small business owners make when it comes to their IT?
There's a lot of them. And it's not that you're making the mistake, it's that you don't know what you don't know. The average business owner, you're a smart person, right? I can do this myself. IT is not one of those things that you want to do for yourself, unless you really are an IT person. So what we find ends up happening is when you have a business owner that decides they're going to do their IT, they just don't dot their I's and cross their T's the way that they should. So it's kind of like, sure, I can do some of my electrical things, but an electrician would do it a lot better than you can. And when all of your business is actually running on IT, leave that one up to the professionals.
That makes a lot of sense because, you can YouTube all day long, but there's going to be those things that you just don't know.
You just don't know, yeah.
So what can business owners be doing better to kind of protect themselves? Because I think the biggest thing with IT is making sure that your data is protected and doesn't go anywhere, right?
That's one of them. So making sure that your data is protected. And it's not even just so much, I have a backup, right? It's I have a backup. And it's not on premise anymore. It's in the cloud somewhere. So I might even have a backup on premise. I might have one in the cloud as well. So we now have 2 backups, which is never a bad thing. And the reason that you do that is, let's say that you actually get hit with ransomware. Well, the one on premise might actually be locked, but the one in the cloud is not. So you still have a way to get back up and running right away. And the other thing is having something called managed detection and response. And what that does, that's a service that a group like us can provide for you. And it watches the network traffic that's going on in your system. So if it sees something that it doesn't like, that user is doing something that user doesn't normally do. Like normally Bob works from 8 to 4, and all of a sudden Bob's in at 2:00 in the morning and files are streaming out of your business. It would shut that down right away. So that's what managed detection and response can do for you. So that's another biggie that you wouldn't necessarily know, but you definitely want as a business owner.
I wouldn't think that a small business owner would need it. Now, thinking about it after you mentioned it, that's probably something that everybody could use. I'm like, maybe I need an IT department. What do most people come to you for?
It can be anything. Sometimes it's just hey, I want you to take a look at what we have. When you realize that day of, I don't know what I don't know. And a lot of what I'm hearing from my current provider or, Joe Bob down the street that's been doing it for me when I call him, that type of thing happens a lot. So we will take a look at what you have, instruct you, educate you, make sure that you understand the technology that you have currently, and then where you should be and where you should be going. So it's not necessarily okay, I can sell you a thing. I'm interested in how I can build your business using technology to do it, because if I grow your business, it's going to grow mine too.
Absolutely. In this day and age, everything's online or at least digital in some way or another.
It really is. A lot of what we're seeing right now is I've had a network for, X number of years, and now we're looking at maybe not having the network anymore. Maybe we want to go cloud-based. So what is that going to take? So explaining to them what that actually takes to take everything that they have currently on their server or in their building and make it not be there anymore. So there's just a small piece that's left that you need to, function if you're still in the building. But other than that, it's a matter of getting all the data that you have and putting it into the cloud and making it very usable from anywhere on the planet.
Is that something that you found more prevalent now that COVID has hit? People want to be more in the cloud rather than a server?
It is. It's a lot more prevalent now than it was previously, and probably not this past March, but the March before when COVID started to hit. We worked around the clock for about 2 months.
I can imagine when everyone started going remotely, how crazy your life must have become.
It was crazy for about 6 months, and then it tapered off a little bit, and it wasn't quite as crazy. And it's still, we're still moving people slowly but surely. A lot of the latecomers to the party kind of thing. I think a lot of it was some people were feeling it out a little bit to see just how long this was going to take. Are we going to be remote after a while? And now we're seeing everybody is at least in some way, shape, or form, at least hybrid. So they might still have some on-prem, but they are doing a lot in the cloud at this point.
Whenever somebody says the cloud, I always picture Willy Wonka from back in the day where you see like the above their head.
Exactly.
Like, oh my gosh, my dad is going to get lost in the stream. You mentioned the cloud and keeping stuff safe there, where I would think that the cloud would be less safe than having it in a server on your premises.
There is some technology out there that does keep it just as safe as it is on-prem.
Really?
Yeah.
I need it right here where I can touch it, see it, feel it.
I know. And a lot of people are like that. And they're like, it's this nebulous cloud place. Where is this exactly? But if you think of it more as your server is just your server and the cloud is just somebody else's server. I don't know if that makes you feel better, but it's just somebody else's server.
It does a little bit because you think about who you're trusting. Obviously, you're going to go with the well-trusted servers, the ones that are going to be there for a while. And so that probably would be more safe. Where do you find the line of who needs to be in the cloud and who needs to be on premises, or is there a line? Is it just whatever their preference is?
There really isn't a line, and a lot of people are like, so where's the cost savings at, right? Because that's where I want to land. I know, and everybody thinks, well, if I'm losing stuff, then it shouldn't be quite as expensive. Well, you pay for that convenience as opposed to I'm going to outlay a ton of cash once every couple of years to be on-prem. And it kind of washes in the end. I think cloud is probably just a little bit more expensive, but again, you're paying for the convenience of being able to work from anywhere. And there are some advantages to it.
What are some of the advantages of being in the cloud, just out of curiosity?
Being able to be more mobile in this day and age is really kind of nice. Not only that, but being able to work with people differently than you could previously, I think is an enormous advantage. Because previously, if you wanted to work in a document with somebody, only one of you could have it open and really working at the same time. The other person could have it open, but it would be read only.
Right.
With 365, you could have as many people in that document as you like, all working together. And you can see the edits going on. So there is some advantage to it.
When people are looking for an MSP, what kind of things should they be looking for?
One is subject matter experts, especially if you have like a line of business application. Knowing what the line of business applications are, it just makes the getting in there, understanding what it is they do, how they do it. Everybody's a little different on how they do it, but it's just a faster onboarding for us and getting them up to speed and understanding how can we better your business as we go. And you can have an MSSP, which is one that's specific to just security. We run something called Managed Detection and Response, which is that Security Operations Center. So we're an MSP that has some services of the MSSP.
So you're kind of a hybrid of both. So if I understand correctly, let me just kind of recap. When you're a business owner, You want to make sure you at least consult with an IT department so that you know what it is that you don't know. And make sure that you align yourself with someone who not only knows IT, but knows your line of business specifically. And then be sure that you know whether they're just dealing with your security or the entire suite of IT products.
Exactly. And they better be giving you a really good feeling too. Because if you're talking to somebody and you're like, maybe not, they're literally holding the keys to your castle. So you better trust them.
That's true. I don't think a lot of people would necessarily put those two things together.
You have to.
Right. Because you would say something like, you need to know where your money is. Well, your IT is your money. This day and age, that's where all your business is coming from.
It is. And I think the other, you're talking about, what are some things that you need to be aware of, and one of the things, and I think you can agree with this, you wouldn't think that you are a target. You're a small business owner. You're not doing anything that's overly exciting. Why would anybody target you? The reality of the situation is they're not targeting you. You're a payday. It's simple. It's just money. They're looking for a payday. So it's not that a hacker sitting in his mom's basement going, oh, I'm going after Veronika because she's got some really good data that I really want to. They don't care. You're a payday. It's kind of like if you don't lock your car door, the people aren't going after your particular car. They're just going down a line of cars and seeing which doors open.
Interesting. That's a really good way of putting it. Because you got to make sure that you lock the car door, so to speak.
Exactly.
You mentioned ransomware, but like, for example, for me or any one of our listeners who, like me, doesn't have exciting data, like I don't think I even have credit cards on file. What kind of things do hackers go after if it's not money?
It's credentials. For the most part, they'll go after your credentials. They'll get access to your email. They'll be able to use your email to launch other attacks on other people. So if you had sent me an email and then I clicked on it thinking it was you, then it would launch another, that kind of thing. So you could see how that would snowball very quickly. So that's one way that they can do it. Some of it's just using, your machine basically as a bot or a zombie, that kind of thing to go do other nefarious things. There's all kinds of ways that they could use your stuff just from a simple set of credentials.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I've gotten those from people that I knew. And I'm like, wait a minute, this person's not going to be asking me for gift cards.
Right. Right.
It's always like, don't call me. I can't talk, but I need money for gift cards. I'm like, what? I call the person. Was this you? No. All right, then. This day and age, what kind of nefarious emails are all the rage?
Oh my goodness. So they change actually about every couple of weeks, they start to change. So right now, some of the big ones are, it's always going to be credentials. So whatever credential that you have, any account that they can get a hold of, they're going to use that. And they'll use different attack vectors to get at them. So they might have part of a credential from one thing, and they'll take part of a credential from another and try to, put the two of them together to see if they can figure out which credentials actually match. Maybe there is a password breach somewhere and they know that they have, part of your credentials. So they'll try that. So there's that. I mean, there's always the shipping ones like, oh, UPS has sent you a package. Click here to see where it's at, right? Those kinds of things. I mean, it all depends on what's going on, what time of the year it is. I mean, there's so many different things that are out all the time. Do you remember the last one that I saw that was really good? It looked like a voicemail from my own voicemail coming in. That one was pretty good. The other one that I saw not too awful long ago, and that actually came in on my cell phone, the smishing, it's called now for the texting ones, is, you've won a blah, 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 blah. Those are pretty popular. So there's all kinds of different ones that are out there, but it's, if something sounds too good to be true, it's absolutely too good to be true.
So what can business owners be doing better?
A lot of tech is not run by like really cool stuff. I know everybody thinks like AI and robots and cool. It's really not. So what's really happening as far as tech goes, we are run a lot by compliance and insurance, believe it or not, especially with cyber insurance. So if you guys don't have a cyber policy right now, you should absolutely be looking into one. And if you're thinking, well, I don't really do business on the web or, whatever, that doesn't matter. Cyber insurance protects your business from more than just somebody coming onto your website. So it's everything from brand protection down to, oh my goodness, I got ransomware, to somebody has made a misleading statement, somebody has swiped my web address. There's all kinds of things that it can actually protect for cyber insurance. So please, please, please take a look at cyber insurance. So that's one thing.
I had never heard of cyber insurance. Excuse my ignorance. What does it do? I mean, I get the insurance part, but other than that, I'm totally lost.
And it depends on the policy. So much like a vehicle policy, I'm going to go back to cars because everybody can relate to a car, right? You get into an incident and you need something to cover that collision, right? So your insurance kicks in. If you have a technology incident in some way, shape, or form, maybe you have a data breach, maybe you have ransomware, maybe you have some brand issues going on. Somebody has done bad things with your brand. That's where cyber insurance can actually kick in and help you either recover your brand, recover your data. It can do forensic analysis for you if you need to figure out where the breach happened, so on and so forth. It'll actually pay for credit monitoring. It does all kinds of really interesting things. And again, depending on your industry, you may actually be required to have it now, and you may be required to have X amount.
Wow, that's super interesting.
I'm glad you find it interesting because it seems so boring to me.
Well, it's boring in that, it's insurance and insurance isn't exciting, right. But it's interesting that you would need it. I would have never thought of cyber insurance, maybe for, like a multi-million-dollar company who is dealing in finance. That may have occurred to me, but just cyber insurance, obviously, now that you mentioned it, it makes a lot of sense. You need to be able to protect yourself, not only to protect your brand, but to protect the people who are trusting you with their information.
Exactly.
And protecting yourself against being liable for that information. So that
exactly. And then knowing what things that you are legally liable for is a big one. And that's going to vary state to state. It's going to vary industry to industry. So I wish I could tell you exactly what that is, but like I said, is your mileage is going to vary depending on where you are and what you're doing. So that's going to be a big one. If you work with your MSP, they'll tell you, okay, so if you're in healthcare, you have HIPAA, you have this, you have that. These are the things that you need to take a look at. Here are the main things that we need to make sure that you're covered with. Here are the policies that you need to make sure that you actually have written. Here are the things that you need to be able to show that you've done in the last 18 months, so on and so forth. And that's just healthcare. There's a ton of other ones that you have to follow as well. So it is so boring, but that's the reality of IT.
And that's the important thing, the things, like you said, that we don't know. Obviously, you have healthcare and you have financial industries, and those have very strict rules about what they need to have on their website. Are there rules for just regular people who have a website of things that we need to make sure we have on our website?
There are some rules that you need to follow, and some of them have to do with the ADA laws. So you have to make sure that your website is, I want to say compatible, is making sure that they are able to read it, see it, hear it, interact with it in some way, shape, or form. So that's a big one. But the other ones are just making sure that if you are taking any type of information in through a form, that you have, the right type of certificate on your website. So it's not just coming in plain text. Again, we want to make sure things are encrypted properly. So yes, absolutely there are, and they're going to vary state to state.
You've mentioned ransomware a few times. For those of us who don't necessarily know exactly what ransomware is, other than, in the movies, what kind of things are ransomware and how do we protect ourselves against that?
Most of the time it starts via email. Somebody clicks on a link. There's all kinds of ways that it can get started. But what happens is it basically pulls a file down onto your PC and it starts the process of encrypting everything on that particular drive. If you're connected to a network, anything that you can see as that user, it's going to encrypt. It literally will encrypt anything that your user has access to.
So really it's kind of holding your data ransom.
It's why they call it ransomware, because it does hold the data ransom. And then it's, you're going to pay X number of Bitcoin to get your data back. And, whether you ever get your data back or not after you've paid your Bitcoin. To be fair, the ransomware folks usually do unlock your data for you and then they re-encrypt it again later on. But they do for a little while. It's just that unless you have somebody go in and forensically analyze your entire system, network, whatever the case is, and find exactly what caused it, exactly where it is, every single last trace of it, chances are it's going to come back.
Wow, that's scary.
It is scary. And the kicker of it is businesses that have that happen, especially small businesses, if you don't have cyber liability insurance, that kind of thing, surviving it is really, really difficult.
I can imagine, because it would bring your operation to a complete halt.
To a complete halt, yes.
And then how do you trust your computers again? Oh my gosh, that's so scary. I can't even think about it.
You don't. You literally rebuild from scratch.
Wow. Super scary. So definitely something that we all need to keep in mind. you have ransomware and other cyber attacks. What kind of things can we do as small business owners, other than having the insurance, to kind of prevent those things from happening? Is there anything we can do?
Yeah, the kicker of it is you are always at risk of having somebody click on something or do something that they shouldn't be doing or be on a site that they shouldn't be. I mean, it's just human nature. Things are going to happen. The biggest thing that you can do is assume that something is going to happen, prepare for that, test for it, be ready for it. So when it does happen, it's not as big of a deal as it would have been had you just kind of like, well, that's never going to happen to me, right? Is it going to happen? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So let's plan for it. Let's, make sure that we have all of these things in place. We actually have something in our toolbox that if it even thinks there's ransomware, it'll drop our machines off of our network and isolate them so that it can't spread, essentially. So do everything that you possibly can with the ability that you have for yourself, be it, money, people, whatever the situation is. Same thing you would do with any other part of your business. Do the best with what you have. And if you don't know what that is, then you find that subject matter expert, trusted advisor, and let them educate you and have them help you choose the right path for your business.
For those of you who are out there thinking, I can do it myself, like, you wouldn't do your taxes on your own as a business if you didn't know anything about accounting.
No. And, I have an MBA and I still have a really good accountant and he still does my taxes because there are things I don't know. I don't know the tax code inside and out. Can I balance my, my checkbook? Can I balance my books? Sure. Can I do some business accounting? Yeah, fantastic. But I am not going to trust my taxes to myself. Not even with the MBA. No, thank you.
Right. Yeah, completely agree with you there. And I can totally see now, speaking with you, that this is super important. Excuse my ignorance, but I'm going to go ahead and ask this. What exactly does an IT department do? Like, I know that sounds like a ridiculous question, but to me,
It's
like
not.
everything computers could be IT. So what is it other than security, obviously, that we already discussed?
Sure. Now we're going to do everything from, hey, my mouse isn't working. Okay, great. I'll replace your mouse for you. We've got one in the box over here. No problem. Out to let's sit down and work up a budget for next year. What projects do you have going on? Let's plan for that. What does that look like to you? How many people do you think you're going to be bringing into the business next year? Do we need to plan for that? There's all kinds of things that kind of play into that. And then there's okay, what does 5 years from now look like from you? What do you want it to look like? How can we make sure that the technology is there to support what it is that you're doing? So there's some of that goes on. But the other thing is, let's say you have a question. I need to make a table of contents in Word. How do I do that? Here's how you do it. So it comes down to, do we do the small stuff? Sure. Do we do the big stuff? Sure. Do we do everything in between? Yes. If your toaster's not working, that's not us. But we're going to tell you, have you, unplugged it and plugged it back in again? Because usually that works. And every MSP is going to be a little bit different. Some of them will be like, nope, we don't do printers. And some of them will be, you know what, you can buy computers on your own. We don't really care what you get. It doesn't really matter to us. We're pickier about that because if you buy junk, you're going to have a really bad time. It's kind of like you can buy the Geo Metro or you can buy the nicer car. Which one's going to give you the better experience, right?
Right. Pay now or pay later, you're paying either way.
Exactly. But, the 1992 Geo Metro, it's not going to be a good time.
It's funny because I had a Ford Aspire, which is basically the same car.
Same thing.
Either way, they're roller skates.
Exactly.
Thank goodness you said that, because I was thinking that too. Like, IT is basically everything. But then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just ignorant, because the last time that I had an IT department, I worked for a big corporation. So they did do everything. Is it something that is completely out of reach for a small business owner? Do we need to be flush with cash to be able to contract with an IT company, or at least have that consultancy?
No, you really don't. So, there's two ways to work with an MSP. One of them is monthly contract, right? And the other way is project. So we could come in, do a project for you. What we can't do, and again, this comes back to insurance. In order for us to get E&O, which is errors and omissions, and the cyber insurance, we can't actually just do like one-off kinds of things, because believe it or not, the whole IT thing runs on who touched it last. So if I came in and fixed something for you, and you're like, yeah, but it's broken again. I'm like, yeah, but you touched it last. And you're like, no, you touched it last. That kind of thing. So it's that liability thing of who touched what last and who has the administrative rights for it. Because if you're running with administrative rights, right? And my MSP would tell you you're not running with administrative rights, period, the end, because that's just not how we do things. We do things in a zero trust environment where we give you the ability to have those rights if you need them, when you need them, and then we take them away again so that you can't inadvertently harm yourself. I've talked in a circle now. But let me answer the actual question.
No worries. I'm following. Go ahead.
So the biggest part to all of this is, again, it does come back to the insurance. So you'd want to pay that monthly recurring cost to make sure that you're always monitored. Everything's going very well. We're going to plan with you. We're going to budget with you. We're going to do all kinds of different things with you throughout the year. And that's what the MSP is for, to actually be that CISO or that CTO or whatever you want to look at from that standpoint of they're your trusted advisor in the IT environment. So you're actually paying for that C-seat position to help you guide your business on the technology side. I mean, my first question is, so tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you're looking for. And I think having that open, honest discussion of, I want to know who you are. I want to know what it is that you do. Tell me about where you want to go. Why are you talking to me? Obviously, you have a problem. So I'm going to find out what that pain point is. There's going to be, 10 of them, I'm sure. And we're going to dig down into each one of those to figure out, is that really the pain point or is that just the symptom of the pain point? Because if you're telling me, well, okay, we have a 5-person office, I'm the owner and I have these 4 other people and they're not very productive. How can I make them more productive? I've given them all of these things. Okay, yeah, but did you educate them? Well, I didn't know I had to educate them. Okay, but you've given them software that they don't know how to use. Okay, so we can educate them. So let's dig down through that. Where's the productivity actually, so be prepared to have really good discussions about what it is that you do, what things are going well. Like Bob does a really good job with Excel, but Joe is terrible. I can't figure out what it is that he does all day. And, is there something where I can actually look to see what he's doing all day? Yes, there actually is. So I'd like to say that we're kind of like the bartender for some things, because we do hear a little bit. It's like really weird. IT people become that sounding board sometimes. You can have that conversation about a lot of things. So I think it's just a matter of where are things good, where are things bad, be open and honest about it. And again, assume at that point that you're talking to somebody at that C-suite level. Treat them that way. And if you are able to do that and have that open, honest discussion, you're going to get the absolute best bang for your buck using the MSP that way.
Just to kind of recap what you said to make sure I got everything correctly, you want to make sure that whoever you choose is, first of all, relatable to your industry, someone that you completely trust and kind of vibe well with, because they're going to be all up in your business.
They're going to be all up in your business. Yes.
And then you want to make sure that when you meet with them, you're completely 100% honest, because they're going to know anyway when they get into your business. And that's the way they can best help you, is to make sure that they know basically what's going on, what's working well, what's not working, and what it is that you want to do, what your future holds for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, understanding that you have a business, you see your business, right? We see your business and we see maybe 40 other ones through the day. So there's plenty of little pieces, parts that we can pick up through those other businesses and say, hey, have you done it this way? Have you tried it like this? These folks do it that way. What about this particular piece of software? Have you taken a look at that? What are you using for your payroll? How long does that take you? Can I get you 3 minutes back every single day somewhere? And how does that add up? Can I get you 5 minutes back? If we're working together, Veronika, and I tell you, okay, I can get you 3 minutes back every single day if you do this one thing, would you do it?
Heck yeah.
Okay. 2 weeks later, I'm like, let's do this particular thing. Now I'm going to save you another 2 minutes, right? So now I've gotten you 5 minutes total. And if we keep going at that throughout how long, you're getting hours back through your week, through your day, just from little teeny tiny changes that you're making in your IT processes, which sounds so silly, but that's the reality of what a really good MSP is able to do.
I shouldn't say, but I use the same password for a lot of things. That's probably not the right thing to do, right?
No, it is not. So let's talk about that for just a moment, because that's a really good one. Everyone does that. It's not like you're the only one on the planet that uses the same password, but again, truth of the matter is that that is not a good thing to do, because if it's breached in one place, it's breached in all of those places. And you have to assume that. For those of you that are using Apple products, it will now come up and start to tell you, hey, some of your passwords have been in breaches, blah, blah, blah. You should change those. I've seen Chrome doing it a little bit. If you go into your password section inside of Chrome, and if you're still storing passwords inside of Chrome, do not put them there. That is like the easiest place to get them. They are not encrypted there very well. So
I'm so ashamed. I have all of my passwords in Chrome. Now, to be fair, I recently purchased Keeper, so slowly but surely I'm transitioning them, but they're still in Chrome.
Yeah, it takes a while to get them out of there. So Keeper's a good one. LastPass is a really good one. There's a couple other ones that are out there that are really great. We use some military grade stuff that's fantastic. The other thing, be sure with anything that you're using that it has multi-factor authentication on it. That's the other big one. And for those of you that don't know what multi-factor authentication is, it's that thing where when you put your password in, it sends you a text to your phone or a code to your phone that you then have to put in somewhere. That's multi-factor authentication. So basically, it's just that you're proving that you are who you say you are.
So as soon as we get off the podcast, I need to make sure I take all my passwords off Chrome, turn on multi-factor authentication where I've turned it all off because it's super annoying, and make sure that I change the passwords on like half my stuff that all have the same password.
Yes, exactly.
And it always brings me back to, what is it, Spaceballs, where he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the kind of thing an idiot has in his luggage. That's not my password. It really is a good password. Like, no, everyone's always like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. And you want to make sure too, they are 10, 12, 15 characters. So, and don't just use your kid's name and their birth date. Because again, I know this. I know you all are doing this and you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, I'm guilty of that one, or your dog or your cat. Everybody uses those particular things, or your sports teams that you really like. And it only takes a little bit of knowledge looking at Facebook, looking at LinkedIn, and I guarantee you I could guess a lot of your passwords. It doesn't take much. So be very, very careful. Use those generators as much as you possibly can, and make sure that you're, using a different generated password for every single credential that you have.
I have a conspiracy theory, and I've never actually looked it up, so it could be totally right or it could be totally wrong. You know those quizzes that they have on Facebook?
Yes, do not do quizzes on Facebook.
Right? Like they always ask you like your pet's name, your address. Those are meant to get your stuff, right?
So that is data aggregation. Somebody somewhere, I'm not saying it's that particular person, but yes, it can be used for data aggregation. It's kind of like a couple of years ago. So Marriott had a really big data breach. And it wasn't that they were necessarily after, Joe Bob wanted to stay in the, king bed suite on the 4th floor. They didn't care about that. They wanted to know about his buying habits. What did he buy when he was there? How did this work? So it was data aggregation that they were looking at. And then they were taking the credential information that they got from that in the data aggregation and compared it against other things that Joe Bob was doing somewhere else. So we now have kind of like a full spectrum idea of Joe, his buying habits, where he goes, what he does. So when we finally find his credit card number somewhere, we can use it in the places where he normally is. And it goes undetected a little bit longer.
Okay, that's flipping genius, first of all. I'm so glad that you proved me right, because I've been saying that for years. And I swear to God, when I tell people that, they look at me like I'm nuts. I feel better about myself now because I'm like, this is wrong. People should not be doing this. But everybody does it. And then I feel
everybody does, because their friends have put out that information. And, if you were sitting there talking to somebody, right, you would think nothing of telling them when your birth date is, or what your favorite color is, or what your cat's name is, or that you have 4 of them, and
Right.
Whatever the case is. You don't think anything about telling somebody that face to face. But then, you have to be really wary of what people are asking you. I mean, even some of the, phone calls that you get, you have to be very careful about the information that you're giving out and making sure that you're giving it out to a reputable source and not just whoever has called you.
I actually almost fell into that trap when I was much, much younger, working as a receptionist, and they were asking me all these questions. And as a receptionist, I would get a lot of people asking surveys, customer service kind of things. And so I started answering, and then slowly but surely, like, they were very, very careful about how quickly they went into financial stuff, but they started asking me, where we think and where, and I'm like, this is bad. Like all of a sudden I was like, the little hairs on the back of your head, neck stand up, like, wait a minute, this is not just the regular survey. And so those are the kind of things that we have to be aware of. They're very tricky, these
They are
hackers.
very tricky. And that's social engineering part of hacking, essentially. Whether it's the survey, whether it's a phone call, maybe you filled out a form. And again, it might be just one innocuous piece of information that you've given out, but you have to take into consideration where that data is aggregated and how it can be aggregated. So you have to be careful about what you're actually giving out.
Interesting. It sounds kind of scary, actually.
It is, and you hate to. I don't ever want to instill fear into people. I think it's more important that you're educated to understand that I don't think the way that we call them bad actors now. That bad actors do. I wish I did, because like you said, a lot of it's just flipping genius. And it's like, if I would have thought of that, 20 years ago, I would be very wealthy right now and not living in the United States where I could be extradited. So, but I don't think the way that they do. I don't think about that data aggregation. And most people don't think about that on the daily, right? So you really have to be very careful about the information that you give out and why. So, when you're at the store, right, they might ask you, what's your zip code? It's really none of your business where I live, because they're taking that data, they're aggregating it against your credit card a lot of the times to figure out how to market better in your area. There's a rhyme and a reason to everything that's going on. So like I said, it's just be aware of what information that you're giving out.
We've touched on so many things and I've learned so much. My mind is like blown and I have to go reevaluate my entire IT department, which would be me. For those of us who need someone like you, where can people find you?
Well, we are on the web. That's just easy to find us. So we are thirdelementconsulting.com, which is 3rdelementconsulting.com. It's the easiest place to find us.
And I'll be sure to put that in the show notes. But are there any final thoughts? Anything else that you want to make sure that we all know about?
The biggest thing, and I can't say this often enough, you are not a target, you're a payday. So even though you think, oh, I'm just too small, there are much bigger fish out there. But the truth of the matter is that if your data is encrypted or they have something that you want to keep quiet or whatever the situation is, you're going to pay up, and they know that. So just do what you need to do to keep your business safe and secure.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not necessarily just the bigger fish that are the ones that are being targeted, because
it's really not. It's easier to get 10 small fish that haven't taken the security steps that they need to than it is to get the bigger fish that would be a bigger payday, but they have a lot more money to throw at security.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, because it's a lot easier to steal the El Camino than it is the Lexus. Not that I'm an El Camino, but you know what I'm saying.
That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. I learned a lot, and I know our listeners did too.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, no problem.
And for those of you who have been listening, thank you so much for being with me today. And I'll be back right after this. Dawn was totally right. There was so much that I didn't know. And I thought I was tech savvy. And I can't believe I was breaking like all the rules she was talking about for passwords. I'm going to go change that right now.
You've been listening to the Biz Essentials. Thanks for listening to the show. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information, learning how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself, and turning your dreams into successful passion projects. By listening to this show, you've already set into motion the most important part, starting. So it's important to catch the next episode. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. In the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Veronika Ventures and at the Biz Essentials. Till next time, this is the Biz Essentials.
Today's quote of the day is by Robert Mueller. As the director of the FBI, he once said, "There are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be." So follow Don's advice and do the best that you can with the resources that you have to protect yourself, your clients, your customers, and your data. Anyway, guys, thank you so much again for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time on the Biz Essentials. Bye.